"Hey, Luna, want to dance with us?" Sophia's voice echoed across the Riverside Classical Dance Academy, her words light, but her mocking tone revealing that the question wasn't sincere at all. Luna Martinez was just 12 when she suddenly became the focus of that circle of graceful girls. Their imported point shoes gleamed under the soft lights, while her own worn-out sneakers made her look out of place. Her mother, Carmen, was busy wiping down the mirrors in the main studio, as she always did, while Luna sat in her corner, quietly waiting for the evening to end. The academy felt like an entirely different universe. The daughters of doctors, businessmen, and judges glided across the shining floor, as if they had been born with wings on their feet. Luna, with her round frame and dark skin, was invisible most of the time, just a cleaning woman's daughter, until Sophia decided to make her the amusement of the afternoon. "Come on, don't be shy," urged Madison, the group's natural leader. At 14, she had already collected 3 first-place trophies in state competitions. "I bet you've memorized all the moves from watching us every single day." The girls burst out laughing, their neatly tied buns bouncing as they closed the circle tighter around Luna. It was Thursday, 5:30 p.m., and Ms. Williams had gone to a meeting, leaving the students free to rehearse on their own. Carmen, scrubbing the floor on the far side of the room, pushed harder, pretending not to hear. She knew that cruel tone all too well. It was the same sound she had grown up with. "How about we run through that part from Swan Lake we practiced earlier?" Sophia suggested, her icy blue eyes glinting with mischief, the hard section with the 32 fouettes. Luna didn't move at first. Her dark eyes swept across the faces surrounding her, searching each one. But there was something unusual in her calm expression, something too steady for a 12-year-old about to be mocked. "All right," she finally said, standing up. Not one of those privileged girls could have imagined that Luna carried a hidden strength that would turn this cruel plan into a moment none of them would ever forget. She tugged at her plain t-shirt, inhaled deeply, and stepped barefoot onto the cold floor. The giggles softened. There was something about her posture, the quiet strength in the way she lifted her chin and set her arms, as though her body had just discovered a language more powerful than any standard of beauty. Carmen stopped cleaning. Her eyes widened as she froze mid-motion. She knew that stance. She had seen it before, late at night when she thought her daughter was alone, unaware of being watched. The girl's surprise was almost comical. Madison, so used to being obeyed without question, blinked several times, struggling to believe Luna had accepted. "Really?" Sophia laughed, though there was a nervous edge in her voice. "You're actually going to try 32 fouettes? That takes years. I can barely get 16 in a row myself." The others crowded in, some pulling out their phones, ready to capture what they thought would be an embarrassing disaster. Carmen's hand tightened around her rag, but she forced herself to keep cleaning. She had taught Luna long ago, never let them see you break. When they underestimate you, that's when you show them who you are. Madison crossed her arms and took on the air of a judge. "Let's make it fair. If she can manage at least 10 without falling, we'll admit we're impressed." Her tone dripped with condescension. "And if she can't?" Sophia asked eagerly, already savoring the outcome. "Then she promises never pretend she belongs here again," Madison declared, her eyes sharp with cruelty. "No more sitting in the corner, watching us like she's one of us." The words hit like a sentence, meant to erase Luna's place in this room forever. Luna stood still, letting their words wash over her. But what those girls didn't know was that all the years she had spent watching hadn't been just idle dreams. In the early mornings, when the studio was empty and Carmen was doing heavy cleaning, Luna had been secretly practicing. Carmen, who had grown up in Venezuela, carried with her the memory of folk dances that had been part of her own youth before life forced her to migrate to the United States. On nights when their work ended late, she and Luna used the empty studio. She passed down not just the steps Luna had seen during the day, but the spirit of dance itself. The strength rooted in their culture, the bond between rhythm and soul that went far deeper than polished technique. When you dance, Carmen would always remind her, you're not trying to impress anyone. You're speaking to something greater than all of us. Madison clapped her hands impatiently. Let's hurry up. I have tennis in an hour. I don't want to waste time on this nonsense. Luna inhaled deeply, closed her eyes for a moment, reaching inside herself for something those other girls could never buy with their parents' money. What she carried was pure authenticity. When she opened her eyes, her gaze had changed. There was an intensity there that even made Carmen drop her cloth and stand still. None of the girls could have imagined what they were about to see. What was coming wasn't just a dance. It was proof that true talent isn't born from expensive classes or gleaming studios. It rises from a need to express a soul that refuses to be silenced, no matter how much the world tries to crush it. The studio went silent. Luna closed her eyes again, and in an instant, she was back in those secret mornings with her mother. In those quiet hours, when only mother and daughter filled the studio, real magic had taken root. Carmen herself had grown up in Caracas, where her grandmother Mercedes had been a renowned folk dancer in Venezuela, before hardship pushed them out of their country. Carmen had absorbed not only the movements but the philosophy behind them. Dance doesn't come from muscle, her grandmother always said. It comes from the heart, and the heart sends it to the feet. For 3 years after late nights of cleaning, Carmen had turned that empty studio into a secret classroom for her daughter. She didn't just teach her the ballet routines Luna had watched during the day. She gave her a unique fusion, European form blended with Latin fire pulsing through her veins. Madison tapped her fingers impatiently on the bar, her Apple Watch flashing a reminder that 15 minutes had already slipped by in the so-called entertainment. "Are we starting, or do you need more time to invent an excuse?" she sneered. Sophia chuckled, shifting the camera in her hand to get the perfect angle. "Let her focus. It'll be even funnier when she crashes. My mom always says people should never forget their place in society." But none of them knew that Luna had been quietly preparing for this very moment for the past 6 months. Not because she could predict today's cruel spectacle, but because Carmen had noticed the glances, the whispers, the bullying that grew sharper with each week. "One day they'll try to break you," Carmen had told her, "and when that day comes, you'll be ready." Carmen had sacrificed what little she had, scraping together her small savings to buy second-hand point shoes from a retired ballerina. At dawn, before anyone arrived, she coached Luna, not just in technique, but in how to turn every feeling, anger, sadness, hope, into movement. This morning discipline had shaped something stronger than any elite class could give. Across the room, Carmen did something she never allowed herself during work hours. She put her rag down. She knew something important was about to unfold, and she needed to see every second of it. Luna inhaled deeply and lifted herself into fit position. Her bare feet gripped the cold floor with perfect balance. The girls still snickered, but Carmen caught what they missed. The shift in Luna's posture, the way her shoulders lined up as though a thread pulled her upward toward the ceiling. 32 fouettes, Luna whispered, almost to herself. "Let's see what I can do." Madison rolled her eyes. "Sweetheart, I've had 3 years of private training with the best teacher in the state, and I can barely get through 16. Do you really think?" Her words died as Luna spun into her first turn. It wasn't flawless according to classical textbooks, but there was something magnetic in it, a weight and emotion that technique alone could never capture. Her arms didn't float like porcelain ballerinas. They cut through the air with expressive power that commanded attention. Second turn, third, fourth. Sophia's grin began to slip. On her phone screen, the recording betrayed what her mind refused to accept. Something remarkable was happening. Carmen's eyes burned with tears. Every spin carried pieces of their secret mornings, her whispered advice, the unique blend of styles they had built together. Yet there was also something new, something Luna had forged alone, a connection to the music that came from a place deeper than rules. 10th spin, 11th, 12th, the giggles evaporated. Madison's proud posture faltered as confusion replaced arrogance. It had taken her 2 years of lessons to reach 12 consecutive turns. Luna kept moving, each fouette sharper than the last. This wasn't luck. It was discipline, determination, and raw gift polished in silence. At the 20th turn, the air shifted. Even the most skeptical girls felt it. They weren't just watching steps. They were watching art. Carmen suddenly understood. These 6 months weren't only about ballet. They had been about teaching her daughter that she belonged, that no wall of prejudice could dictate how far she could go. 25th, 26th, 27th. By the time Luna crossed the 30th fouet, the truth was undeniable. This was more than a display of skill. It was a declaration that talent is not bound by money, privilege, or skin color, that strength often rises from places others dismiss as weak. 32, 33, 34. Luna spun past every expectation, her precision almost defying logic. Madison's legs buckled. She gripped the bar to keep from falling. In her 14 pampered years in elite dance, she had never witnessed anything close to this. "That's impossible," Sophia whispered, her voice shaking, though her phone still recorded. What began as a trophy of humiliation had transformed into evidence of something extraordinary. Carmen's tears flowed freely now. Each turn was a living testament to the sacrifices she had made. The office's scrub at dawn, the old shoes bought with half a paycheck, the countless nights spent teaching borrowed steps in a tiny apartment. 40th turn, 41st, 42nd. A younger girl in the group began to cry softly, not from cruelty but from awe. It felt like witnessing a miracle, a rewriting of what talent and grace really meant. "My God!" A voice whispered at the door. Ms. Williams had returned just as Luna cleared the 40th spin. Her briefcase slipped from her hand with a thud. "How is a 12-year-old executing 45 consecutive fouettes?" she muttered, unable to believe her trained eyes. She didn't just see precision. She saw a spirit in motion, a connection to music deeper than any training she had ever taught. Luna finally stopped at 45, not from exhaustion, but because the point had been made. Her bare feet settled softly onto the floor, closing the sequence with the finality of an exclamation mark. The silence was deafening. Madison was the first to speak, her hands trembling. Where did you learn that?" "I've trained for 8 years with the best teachers, and I've never made it past 16. 45, one girl repeated, as if saying it aloud would make it real. "Not even in American ballet theater videos have I seen someone do 45 in a row." Sophia's phone still filmed, but her hand shook so violently the image was nothing but a blur. The clip she had planned to post as proof of Luna's humiliation had become evidence of something unforgettable, not just for Luna, but for every girl in that studio. "Luna," Ms. Williams's voice cut the silence, heavy with awe. "We need to talk. What you did, that wasn't normal. That was extraordinary." Carmen rushed forward, pulling her daughter close, her arms tightening around the small shoulders that had just carried the weight of so many years of prejudice. "Estoy orgullosa de ti, mija," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Mercedes estaría orgullosa también." Madison's eyes darted around, searching for someone to restore her broken reality. In only minutes, her entire world of privilege and superiority had been crushed by the very girl she had mocked. I need to sit," one ballerina murmured, sliding against the wall. Did that really happen? Did she really do 45 fouettes? "It wasn't just the turns," Ms. Williams said quietly, stepping closer. "It was her presence, her connection to the music. Luna, how many years have you trained formally?" "Formally?" Luna asked with a small smile, glancing at her mother. "Never. My mom has been teaching me for 3 years. She learned from my great-grandmother, who was once a principal dancer at the Teresa Carreño Theater in Caracas." The effect of Luna's revelation rippled through the studio like an explosion. Every girl who had spent years in $200 an hour classes with European instructors suddenly felt her world tilt. Because a child, trained not in elite academies but in the early mornings by her mother who scrubbed floors for a living, had just outshone them all. "Your phone," Luna said quietly, extending her hand toward Sophia. Sophia froze, then reluctantly gave her the device. Luna studied the recording with calm, thoughtful eyes, as though analyzing not herself but the truth of what had just unfolded. She handed it back. "You can share that video anywhere," she said evenly. "Maybe people will finally understand what happens when someone is judged by their clothes or background instead of their actual gift." For the first time, Madison's voice broke through, but it was no longer sharp with superiority. It trembled, small and exposed. I'm sorry, Luna." Really? We didn't realize you. I didn't know that you had that kind of talent. Luna tilted her head, her words soft yet unyielding. Didn't know that I was what? Different from you? That's exactly the point. I am different, and that's why I can do what you never thought possible. Ms. Williams, who had stood silently until then, stepped forward with growing awe. Luna, she said slowly, would you consider taking formal lessons? Any academy in this country would welcome you after what I just saw. Carmen cleared her throat gently. Professor, we could never afford this school. I work here because I must, not because I want to. Full scholarship, Ms. Williams replied instantly. Private instruction, competitions, everything. Talent like this cannot be buried under circumstance. The studio remained still until a sound broke the silence. Applause. To everyone's shock, it came from Madison. Her hands shook and tears streaked her cheeks, but she clapped, whispering, In all my years of training, I've never seen anything like that. Luna, you're extraordinary. One by one, the others joined in. This was not the hollow applause of condescension Luna had often endured, but the genuine recognition of young dancers whose horizons had just been shattered and rebuilt. Sophia looked from her phone to Luna. Can I post this? Not as a joke. Her voice faltered and steadied. But as inspiration, people need to see it. Luna gave a faint smile. You can, but tell the truth. Tell them that real talent isn't about money, skin color, or status. It's something you can't buy. Still, as cheers and apologies echoed through the studio, Luna sensed this was about more than a single performance. Something fundamental had shifted, not just in how they viewed her, but in how she now understood herself and her place in the rigid world of classical ballet. 3 months later, Sophia's video had traveled across the internet like wildfire. With over 15 million views, its title, 12-year-old proves talent has no color or class, turned Luna Martinez into the youngest ballerina in the country to capture national attention. Riverside Academy was never the same. Ms. Williams kept her promise, awarding Luna a full scholarship, but she went further. In a televised interview, she admitted, Our academy was closing its doors to brilliance by clinging to shallow ideas of beauty. Luna's performance made me realize how much genius we were throwing away. Even Madison, once the school's untouchable star, now shared the spotlight. What began as humiliation became transformation. On her blog, she confessed, Luna taught me that greatness isn't about fitting old molds. It's about authenticity, dancing with your whole soul. Sophia, too, was changed. She became Luna's strongest ally online, using her platform to uplift other overlooked dancers. The clip that was meant to mock now circulated in studios nationwide as proof that artistry thrives far beyond privilege. Carmen's life shifted as well. Promoted to maintenance coordinator, she earned a salary that allowed her family to move into a bigger home. The academy also invited her to teach Venezuelan folk dance, ensuring her heritage reached a new generation of students. Soon after, Riverside launched the Luna Martinez program, a scholarship fund designed to find hidden talent in marginalized communities. Despite her young age, Luna became a mentor, helping kids like herself discover that they too belonged on stage. Within a year, she had already claimed 3 national junior titles, not only for her refined technique, but for the magnetic energy that electrified her performances. Critics began to speak of a new school of ballet, where perfection met raw emotion, and Luna's name was always at the center. Her rise reached New York, where the American Ballet Theater invited her into their youth program. She and her mother traveled together, meeting principal dancers whose own stories carried echoes of Luna's struggle. When asked by Dance Magazine how she handled the weight of being a symbol of change, Luna answered simply, I don't dance to prove anything. I dance because it's who I am. If my dancing inspires others, then that's its real purpose. The most profound transformation, however, happened back at Riverside. The toxic competitiveness that once dominated the academy gave way to collaboration and celebration. Dancers of all shapes, shades, and styles now trained side by side, their authenticity no longer hidden but embraced. Carmen often sat in the back of the studio, remembering her grandmother's words, La danza es el idioma del alma. When the soul speaks, the world listens. 1 year after that unforgettable afternoon, an invitation arrived. Luna had been selected to represent the United States at the International Young Dancers Gala in Paris. The girl who had once been mocked into performing against her was now preparing to stand on the most prestigious stage in the world. The night before her flight, she returned alone to the same studio where everything had begun. She didn't rehearse the 45 fouettes that had stunned everyone. Instead, she moved freely, pouring her heart into a silent dance meant for no audience but the walls that had once echoed with cruelty. Luna Martinez's story proves something the world too often forgets. True artistry has no color, no class, no price tag. More than that, it showed that when prejudice is met with dignity, discipline, and authenticity, it doesn't just break down walls, it builds bridges for countless others to cross. And sometimes, the greatest revolutions begin not with speeches or battles, but with a single spin performed by a child the world never believed in.